So I first came to Limmud when I was working at the Centre for Jewish Education in Finchley, and that was 1988, and we were going to Oxford Polytechnic, as I think it was then called, Oxford Brookes. It was a group of educators, a small group of educators from across the community, and it was somewhat interesting because I'd never been to Limmud before, and yet I was asked to develop the program for that winter's event. Apparently, someone had forgotten to appoint anyone to build the program, and so, along with the staff of the Centre for Jewish Education, we took responsibility for building the program that winter, and we had a good time. We met lots of people, particularly across the divides of the community, which I think was the very first realization that Limmud was offering something brand new to all of us. Whether we were Orthodox or progressive, whether we were formal educators or informal educators, as was known in those days, we were all together in one place, and we learned together, we played in the snow together, we sang together, we ate together, and it was the beginning of a wonderful experience, a time to get away from the Christmas tinsel and to be in the Jewish community that was being created by Limmud.
So my first Limmud event would have been 1994. And I heard about it through Andrew Gilbert, who was reaching out to ex-movement workers, ex-UGS workers, and myself and a friend, Nathan Tiefenbrunn, had been working at UGS for a year, weren't quite sure what we were going to do next. And Andrew nabbed us and said, come along to this thing. I think you'll enjoy it. And so that was my first Limmud conference in 1994. When it was a smaller event, everybody pitched in with everything. So again, I remember that whether it was printing the badges in the last 24 hours before participants arrived, or doing bag packing parties on the last night of pre-conference, there are lots of good memories of those early days of building the conference team and the conference.
My first Limmud experience was in 1994 when I went as part of the Adams Science Foundation Leadership Program and had no idea what to expect. I was so blown away, and perhaps the fact that I met someone who was involved in Limmud, that I went back the next year where I got dragged into volunteering and running the office, and I have never looked back since.
I'm Rebecca Lewis, and I'm going to tell you about my first Limmud experience. So in 1996, I'd just come back to the UK from spending some time in America, and a friend of mine said, oh, by the way, I've signed you up for this thing, this Jewish thing, you're going to love it. Your parents' friends go, and it's all different backgrounds and all different things going on. She said, you're going to love it. I said, it sounds absolutely terrible. I'm definitely not going. And she said, well, I've signed you up already anyway, it only costs £60. I said, I don't have any money and I'm not going, it sounds awful. And then they contacted me to say that they were short of madrachim, and I had some experience as a madracha, and they would be happy to pay me £150. And I was like, right, okay, I'm there. So I went along to my first Limmud in 96, and I had the most amazing time. I loved the experience of being a madracha. It was totally different to my youth work experience. I loved the moadon and all the guitar playing and the alcohol. I loved the sessions. I even remember enjoying the food. I must have been really hungry. And that was my first Limmud experience. The following year, my then boyfriend, now husband, was dragged along as well, and my parents too. And since then, as a family, we have been going to Limmud events over the years.
So I heard about Limmud from friends, and also because my sister was here from America with her husband and my new niece. So I went to Limmud.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was, I think, 96. And my first memory was... I
was a mere stripling at that point.
My first memory was sitting in a session and sitting next to you. And I quite liked you, but wasn't interested in you. And then,
unfortunately, I don't recall that.
And then, but a year later, we started going out at Limmud. That was the evening of the gala.
You sat down with me.
Yeah,
You
I
said
did.
enough already.
Yeah, I did.
Are we going to go out or not?
Yeah, I did, more or less.
Yes. And that was in Manchester, wasn't it?
That was in Manchester. And then the following...
There's a plaque.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the following year, we couldn't come to Limmud because we were already married and living in New York.
My first Limmud event was in 1997, I believe, when I went to Manchester with my parents. I was about 13, and I can only owe that to my parents for taking me there. And I just remember walking around in the freezing cold, not really knowing what was going on, but already understanding the wonderful bonds and close friendships that were going to lie ahead for me in my Limmud journey. Some of the people that I met at that Limmud, I then met many, many, many years later when I carried on attending. And those are my first memories of my first Limmud experience.
I can't remember where I heard about Limmud, but friends must have told us. We had been living in Israel for a long time. We'd come back 1998, and somebody told us about Harrow Day Limmud. So we went, and we had a wonderful time. And then we heard there was a whole conference over Christmas, and we signed up for it right away. And we went and have been going ever since without a single break, except, of course, 2020. Nottingham was amazing. That was where we first were. I remember the snow. I think there was snow that first year. My Nottingham experiences tend to meld into each other. But the thing I remember is the excitement, the sense of happy purpose, people dashing everywhere, falling in the snow. My kids who thoroughly enjoyed their time and came back talking about putting snow down the trousers of the Madrachim. That was for them the highlight of that first Limmud, I think. And I think I even remember the first session I ever went to, which was something about translations of the Talmud by Alan Mintz, I think. I'd have to check that. But the camaraderie, the feeling of being a community, which is still why I go to Limmud, that sense of being a citizen of Limmud, somebody with rights and duties and privileges and opportunities. And that just makes me come back again and again.
Well, the Dutch Limmud had always been limited to sort of one day. So then to have 6 days of learning in English was for me like going to a little kid sleepaway camp, which I also never got to go to. So it was just absolutely amazing.
Our daughter, who now lives in the UK permanently, was in the UK on a temporary basis and joined the Limmud UK programming team back in 1999 and said to us, why don't you come over one year when we came over to see our family and come and experience the UK Limmud that was then in Nottingham. And we went, and I was inspired by it. In fact, I was overwhelmed by the experience of Limmud. I'd seen the Limmud UK give their community a great gift of learning and belonging, and particularly its volunteerism, and how future Jewish leaders began at Limmud. And I was driven by a passion to replicate that in Canada. And that was the beginning of Limmud in North America.
We were just kind of regular family visitors. We always looked forward to going to Limmud. It was a real highlight of the year. We loved the kind of intense, dynamic atmosphere of learning and exchange and hearing from such a rich array of speakers, whether they were international politicians and journalists or just local inspirational educators, the opportunity to do such a variety of things, as well as listening to talks and obviously the films and the cookery demonstrations and the Israeli dancing, the singing. It was just a wonderful experience, which we always enjoyed. I guess my overriding feeling up until 2013, when I participated in Limmud, was the enjoyment of leaving London for a few days, being in this incredibly sort of intense bubble, and then returning to London and somehow feeling that everything felt much more shallow by comparison, even the sort of twinkly lights of Christmas. And I kind of really loved that.
I went to what was then called a Limmud conference for the first time in 2005. and that started me off. I was under the gross misapprehension that Limmud was only for very frum people. I had no idea what happened at Limmud. I really had very little idea what it was about. But at that particular conference, what the program was run by my son, Robin, and he was desperate that somebody in the family should come and see his handiwork, so to speak. And everyone else was saying, no, I'm too busy. So Martin said, okay. And I had the time of my life. I had a real ball. I loved it. And I wanted more of it immediately. And I was terribly frustrated that I couldn't have more of it. So when I came home, I started navigating around my local community, seeing if we could get together some interest in doing a Cambridge Limmud, which eventually resulted in the first Cambridge Limmud, which was then called a Day Limmud, in March 2007. And I think there have been subsequently 6 or 7 Cambridge Limmuds, and I've had a part in all of them. So I'm a groupie, I think, really now.
So my first experience of Limmud, I was 13. I was dragged along to the event by my mum, and I had no idea what to expect. I was a bit nervous. I knew there were going to be lots of people there, lots of other kids. And the experience was transformative. It was amazing. There was a fantastic youth track, and they treated us like little adults. It wasn't patronizing. We had the cream of the crop of presenters from that year who all tailored their talks specifically to us as young and teen Limmud, which was fantastic. So we didn't get a sort of dumbed down kids program. We got some of the best presenters from that year.
2013 was the first Limmud that I attended. I am a Christian priest, an Anglican priest, and I've been involved in Jewish-Christian relations and broader interfaith relations in a variety of contexts. So I knew about Limmud and knew what a good thing it was and how energizing it was to the Jewish community. But of course, its timing, falling as it does around the 25th of December, was not great for me. So the first time I worked in a job where my parish commitments were pretty minimal and voluntary, I said to the priest in charge, I'm going to take Christmas off. And that's what I did, and I threw myself into it. Because, of course, that did take us over the 24th and the 25th of December. And I did wear my clerical collar, so to be clear about who I was on a panel in the opening session. Very kindly, I was invited to be part of that on Hineni. So I was getting known about the place. And as the evening of the 24th of December wore on, people were getting more and more concerned about me, saying, you shouldn't really still be here, should you? You should be going to church for midnight mass. So I had to explain that actually midnight mass, it's not a mitzvah in Christian terms, it's a minhag. You have to go to church, or if you possibly can, on Christmas Day, but that's any time from the eve of the 24th to the eve of the 25th, really. The Christian liturgical day, interestingly, also begins the evening before. So I had made arrangements to go to Coventry Cathedral on the 25th of December and fulfill my religious obligations that way. But people's concern for me was really quite touching.
I was living in Stamford Hill, and I was exploring leaving Stamford Hill and thinking about other places I could live. And I was thinking about moving to Manchester, and somebody said to me, well, why don't you come to Manchester Limmud and you'll meet lots of people? Now, obviously, that's a ridiculous way to get to know Manchester, because Limmud is not typical of Manchester at all. And it's a self-selecting group of people who come to Limmud, but maybe that person, I don't even remember who it was, maybe that person knew that that's the sort of Manchester people I would benefit from meeting. Anyway, I came to Manchester Limmud, which was a regional full-day conference, so just one day. I think it was 2016 or 2017. And so I was living in Stamford Hill and came to Manchester for the regional Limmud. That was my first one.